Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are opening up a file that smells like, well, ozone, old parchment, and honestly, just a lot of spilled blood.
A whole lot of it. Yeah.
Right. We are cracking open the source material from Tracing the Shadow by Sarah Ashe. And I have to say, right off the bat, the opening of this story, it really does not pull any punches.
No, it definitely doesn't.
It feels less like your standard high fantasy novel and a lot more like a grim war report from a very, very bad night.
It does. Sarah Ashe just drops us right into the immediate aftermath of a brutal siege. And it immediately sets up a world defined by this massive, glaring contradiction.
A contradiction in what sense? Because, usually a siege is pretty straightforward.
Right.
One side wins, the other loses. The winner plants their flag, and the loser either goes home or, well, dies.
Politically, yes, that's how it works. But philosophically, it is a complete mess. You have these Frankian conquerors walking through the literal bodies of the people they just slaughtered, and they honestly believe they were the absolute height of civilization.
Yeah, they see themselves as the good guys.
Exactly. They think they're bringing order and light to the savages. But the reality on the ground, the reality you are reading, is just absolute carnage.
So it's high culture meeting brutal butchery.
That's the perfect way to put it. And that juxtaposition is really the heartbeat of this entire deep dive we're doing today. We are looking at a world where alchemy, and they spell that with a Y just to give it that authentic, archaic flavor.
That's truly.
Right, where alchemy is treated as a highly respected, government-funded science. It's used to fuel their war machine. But magic is utter heresy.
It's the forbidden arts.
Exactly. Punishable by death.
Yeah.
And yet, as we are going to see, the line between this respected alchemy and this forbidden magic is so thin, it is practically non-existent.
And that right there is the core mission for this deep dive. We want to really explore that bizarre intersection of technology, imperialism, and forbidden magic.
It's fascinating.
It is. And we are going to unpack the dynamic between a master who has maybe gone a little too far in his cold pursuit of the science and an apprentice who has way too much raw power for his own good.
And shadowing all of this, overshadowing it, really is a massive political and geopolitical conflict.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the French and commandery thinking they are fighting a totally standard territorial war. They want land, they want resources, they want trade routes.
The usual empire stuff.
The usual. But what they have accidentally done is stumble blindly into a spiritual war. One involving ancient artifacts called angel stones, trapped ethereal spirits, and forces they do not understand.
It sounds like an absolute geopolitical nightmare. So just to give you all a roadmap of the sources we're pulling from today, we have the prologue, which gives us this intense heist.
A heist on Hesser.
Right. Then we have the first couple of chapters taking us to the College of Thaumaturgy in Karantech, which, let's be honest, is a fancy word for a wizard school that pretends it isn't a wizard school.
It really is, just wizards in lab coats.
Totally. And then finally, we have the Inquisition actively sharpening their knives in the background.
That is the lay of the land.
So let's just start right at the beginning with that prologue. The setting is Ontessar, a fortress citadel in Anhir. The Francians have just won, and we are following Captain Rieuk de Lamveau as he walks through the courtyard.
And he is just completely exhausted.
He is. He's got blood dripping into his eye, and the atmosphere is not triumphant at all. It's heavy.
The text actually describes it as a hollow victory. And that really matters for the context of everything that follows.
How so?
Because this isn't some glorious romantic conquest. It's a grim necessity for the Empire. Rieuk is a professional soldier. He's not a sadist. But he's walking through a scene where his own men are actively killing the wounded enemy soldiers.
Yeah, he literally refers to the Inhurons as cornered dogs.
Right, which is a really rough, dehumanizing image. And right in the middle of this bloody cleanup operation, his lieutenant, a guy named Conan, finds a dying Inhuron boy.
And usually, in these kinds of fantasy stories, the honorable soldier saves the kid, or the kid manages to run away and swear revenge.
But this interaction goes somewhere else entirely.
Completely elsewhere. The boy is barely alive, and Conan is basically ready to just slit his throat and move on.
Just end it.
Yeah. But Rieuk stops him. He actually offers the kid some water. It's this tiny, fleeting moment of mercy, and the kid just glares at him and says, "You have no right to be here."
And then he curses him. And this isn't just your generic, "Oh, I hope you rot in hell" kind of curse. It is highly specific.
He invokes a Zeales.
Exactly. He says, "They will avenge us. They will come after you, the hawks that fly in the night."
And then he just dies.
Yeah.
But right before he passes, the soldiers notice a tattoo on the boy's hand and his forehead.
It's the letter A.
Just an A. And this is where the religious and cultural confusion really kicks in, right?
It is entirely the crux of the cultural disconnect, because Rieuk sees the A and immediately thinks, Saint Azelia.
Which is the Frankian saint.
Right. Their version of the Holy Mother, essentially. The pure protector.
But then Conan, the lieutenant, looks at it and says, A for Azelia. No, A for Azilis, the eternal singer.
And that is the moment of realization. They are standing in a holy place that they believe is dedicated to their own saint.
But to the Inherons, the people they just massacred, she is Azilis.
It's the exact same deity.
That is wild.
It really is. It's the same deity, just interpreted through the lens of two totally different cultures who are currently busy killing each other over who gets to worship her properly.
So they're fighting this brutal, bloody, holy war against people who worship the exact same god, just using a different name.
Essentially, yes. It perfectly highlights the absolute absurdity of imperial conflict. To the Francians, the Inherons are savages who are defiling the saint's shrine.
But to the Inherons,
The Francians are invaders defiling the exact same saint.
it creates this really sickening, hollow feeling to the victory. The Francians found the holy site they were looking for, but they literally had to wade through a river of blood to get to the altar.
And while Rieuk is having this very somber, dark moment of reflection in the courtyard, the text abruptly cuts to our intruder.
The guy inside the shrine.
Right. The man who does not care at all about the politics or the religious irony or the dead bodies. He just wants the prize.
And this is the character we later learn is Magister Kaspar Linnaius. But in the prologue, he's just this unnamed, mysterious trespasser.
He's infiltrated the inner sanctum during the chaos of the battle outside, and he finds this statue of Azelia holding a crystal lotus.
And inside that lotus is the ether crystal.
And the text makes a point to say that the crystal is singing.
Yeah, a high, eerie voice. And I love this detail. How does he get it out? He doesn't cast a spell?
No, he pries it out with a mundane chisel.
Which is such a brutally practical tool for a magical heist. You expect an incantation or a glowing wand, but he's just using a piece of sharp metal to pry a rock out of a priceless religious artifact.
It emphasizes exactly how he views the world. He treats this entirely as resource extraction.
Right, he's a miner.
Exactly. He's not revering the holy object, he's harvesting it. And then he does the classic Indiana Jones move. He swaps the singing crystal with a fake glass replica.
But the consequences are immediate. Because the second he removes it, the singing stops.
The shrine goes dead silent.
And the soldiers upstairs hear the silence. They know immediately that someone is down in the shrine.
So now it turns into a frantic chase scene. Linnaius is bolting up the tower stairs. And the detail here is fantastic because he's not some spry, athletic, young rogue.
No, he's an old man.
His knees are aching, his lungs are burning, he's wheezing.
He's literally thinking to himself, I am getting too old for this.
He barely makes it to the roof. And waiting for him is this small craft, described as being a little bigger than a rowboat, but it has a sail.
On a roof.
Exactly. But he's cornered before he can launch it. The soldiers burst through the door. Captain Rieuk is there.
And this is the moment where the whole disguise of being a man of science completely falls off.
Because he doesn't use a grappling hook or a mechanical glider to get away.
He uses the wind, but not in a normal sailing way.
No, he explicitly uses the forbidden arts. He starts twisting his fingers, making these complex hand signs, and he calls down the wind.
Like crystal dragons, I think the text says.
Yes. He creates this massive localized storm that violently blinds the soldiers with sand and physically lifts his heavy craft straight into the air.
And Captain Rieuk, the poor guy, he actually lunges and grabs onto the side of the
He's
crab.
dangling over the edge of the roof, hundreds of feet in the air, trying to arrest this thief.
And Linnaius just blasts him with sand and raw wind magic until Rieuk loses his grip and falls back onto the roof.
And that moment right there is incredibly pivotal for the rest of the story.
Because there are witnesses.
Exactly. Up until then, the commandery might have suspected that magic was real or that rogue magi existed. But now, a highly respected captain of the guard has been physically lifted into the air by a man who was actively controlling the weather.
They have eyewitness testimony from their own military.
This provides the undeniable proof positive that the Inquisition is going to need later on to start their witch hunts.
So Linnaius escapes into the night sky with his stolen singing rock, leaving a very angry, very physically injured military commander behind him.
That closes the prologue perfectly.
It really does. And then we jump into chapter 1, and the tone just completely shifts. We move from this hot, sweaty, bloody desert siege to the cool, dusty, quiet halls of academia.
The College of Thaumaturgy in Karantech.
And this is where we meet our other main protagonist, Rieuk Mordiern. He is Linnaeus's apprentice.
Though apprentice is a generous term for how he's treated.
Right, because when we first meet him, is he doing high-level alchemical research? Is he translating ancient texts? No, he is dusting.
Which tells you absolutely everything you need to know about his status at the college. He is incredibly talented, he's highly ambitious, but he's treated like a scullery maid.
He's literally cleaning Linnaeus's laboratory while the master's away stealing artifacts.
And he's cleaning the main MacGuffin of the story, a device called the Vox Aethyr, or the Vox Aethyria.
Let's unpack what this machine actually is, because the name sounds incredibly fancy, but what does it actively do?
The easiest way to think of it is as a magical radio.
Okay.
It supposedly uses crystal resonance to transmit human voice over massive distances through something called the ether.
Which is this sort of magical dimension or invisible stream of energy.
Exactly.
But it sounds like a massive arms race. Why is the Francian military relying on this highly experimental, specific technology? I mean, if they have cannons and steel and huge navies, why do they desperately need a magical radio?
It all comes down to geography and logistics. The Francian Empire is primarily maritime. They are fighting massive naval wars over distant trade routes and scattered islands.
So communication is a nightmare.
A total nightmare. In that context, fast information is literally ammunition.
Wow.
The Vox Aethyr isn't just a fun scientific convenience. It is the difference between a perfectly coordinated strike and a scattered, blind fleet getting picked off one ship at a time.
So the Vox is essentially their Enigma machine.
It really is.
Yeah.
And just like real-world military technology, the government funding it does not care at all about the ethical cost of building it.
They just need it to work.
Right. But the problem is, right now, it is not working.
It's completely dead silent. Linnaeus and his colleague... The Admiralty, the Francian Navy, is the one writing the checks for the college, and they are definitely not doing it out of a love for pure science.
No, not at all. There is a massive war coming. The text explicitly mentions that Francia and their rival nation, the Keelan, are on the very brink of all-out conflict.
And the Telans have just signed a treaty with Anhir, which is the place the Francians just violently conquered in the prologue.
Right. They signed it for the spice trade. So the Francians are surrounded, and they need the Vox to coordinate their fleets immediately, or they could lose the empire.
But there's an even darker, more immediate threat for the alchemists than just losing the war. If the Admiralty funding stops, the Admiralty's political protection stops too.
And if that protection goes away, the Inquisition moves right in.
Yeah, we get this incredibly tense scene where two Admiralty officials actually show up at the college looking for Linnaeus.
And he's obviously not there. He's still flying back from his heist in the desert.
So these officials just corner the principal of the college, Magister Goneril, and they are absolutely brutal about it.
They don't mince words. They basically tell him, you have 1 week. If the Vox doesn't work in 7 days, we cut the money.
And we let the new Inquisitor, a man named Eloi Vincent, tear this place apart piece by piece.
And that is a terrifying threat, because the Inquisition firmly believes that what these alchemists do in their labs is literal heresy.
They are just looking for any excuse to shut the college down, drag everyone out, and put them on trial for their lives.
So the stakes here are quite literally life and death.
And into this massive high-stress pressure cooker walks Rieuk.
Our disgruntled apprentice.
Right. He's just cleaning up the lab, and he casually picks up a crystal. And this is where we really see that Rieuk isn't just a normal, book-smart student.
No, he is something entirely different. He has what he calls a sympathetic resonance.
When he holds a crystal, he can actually feel its heartbeat. He can hear it singing to him.
He identifies himself as an elemental. This is raw, unrefined, natural talent. It's not something you learn from reading a textbook. It's a deep physical and spiritual connection to the earth itself.
So he finds this little citrine crystal lying around that hums to him, and he just pockets it.
As you do.
Exactly. Later on, Linnaeus finally returns to the college, and he looks terrible.
He is a wreck. He looks aged, his hair has turned white. He is totally exhausted from using so much forbidden magic to escape on Dessar.
But he brought back a sealed wooden box.
The box containing the stolen singing crystal. The prize.
Linnaius sends Rieuk to deliver the sealed box over to Magister de Manoir's house, but on the walk over, Rieuk feels the resonance.
The little citrine crystal in his pocket is vibrating. It's humming back at whatever is inside the sealed box.
And this is the classic forbidden fruit moment. Rieuk knows he absolutely should not open the box. He knows he shouldn't touch the Master's project.
But he also knows he has this unique gift. He's thinking, I can fix the Vox. I can solve the problem.
I can save the college from the Inquisition and finally prove to Linnaius that I am not just a glorified servant.
So he opens the box. He takes the stolen crystal, which he beautifully calls a fallen star, and he sneaks it into the Vox machine at Manoir's house.
And this leads us straight into what is easily the most horrific scene in the source material.
Without a doubt.
Because when Rieuk activates the Vox with the new crystal, it doesn't just transmit a voice like a radio should.
No, it screams.
And I really want to pause and dig into this because the description the author uses isn't just, oh, it made a loud, unpleasant noise.
It is deeply visceral.
Yeah, it's described as the sound of chalk rasped over a blackboard or a knife blade scraped aggressively against glass.
It is the sound of pure, distilled agony.
And it's not just an audio phenomenon either. A physical figure actually manifests in the blinding light of the machine.
A translucent humanoid shape.
Yeah.
And it is being violently torn apart by the resonance of the machine.
That is just, it's horrifying. So the ether that they've been talking about isn't just some neutral energy grid or radio frequency.
No, it's a habitat.
Wow.
And the Vox Aether acts as a literal torture chamber.
That's insane. So the battery for their magical military radio is a sentient spirit.
Yes, possibly a fae that Linnaius stole from that holy shrine in the desert.
So when the machine turns on, it actively rips this living spirit apart to bridge the distance and send the signal.
Essentially, yes. And Rieuk is completely overwhelmed by this. Because he's an elemental, he doesn't just see it, he actively feels the spirit's pain washing over him.
He's paralyzed. He physically cannot reach out and turn the machine off.
And this is the moment that completely exposes the lie of alchemy. This is where we see that alchemy really is just magic that's been given a corporate rebranding.
Right, because how do they stop the machine from destroying the house? Manoir rushes into the room, Linnaius shows up, and they don't pull a lever or use a wrench to shut down a mechanical failure?
No, Linnaius literally yells out, "By the power of my blood, I bind you."
Blood magic.
They use blood magic. They perform an ancient, desperate binding ritual to trap the screaming spirit into a physical book just to stop it from tearing the cottage apart.
Wait, by the power of my blood, that sounds exactly like the kind of dark sorcery the Inquisition burns people at the stake for.
It is exactly that. It completely confirms that the alchemists are practicing the forbidden arts.
They just do it while wearing a lab coat instead of a wizard's robe.
Exactly. They violently bound a sentient spirit to save their own skins.
So the spirit gets sucked into this book. Rieuk is collapsed on the floor. He's actually bleeding from his lip because Linnaius hit him during the chaos to break his paralysis.
It's incredibly abusive.
It is. Now, you would think, given the circumstances, that Linnaius might be a little bit grateful that the Vox actually powered on, or at least relieved that they all survived the explosion.
Not at all. Linnaius is absolutely furious. He looks at Rieuk and calls him a danger to himself. He wants to expel the boy immediately.
But why such a wildly harsh reaction? Rieuk technically made the thing work. He solved the exact problem the Admiralty was threatening to kill them over.
It's purely driven by fear. When Linnaius looks at Rieuk, he sees his own younger self. He sees that raw, reckless, arrogant power. Linnaius knows firsthand that that kind of power attracts attention. Very dangerous attention.
Inquisition.
Right. And he also knows that Rieuk just exposed the very dirty, deeply unethical secret of their supposed technology.
He let the magical genie out of the scientific bottle, quite literally.
He did. And that brings us to the immediate fallout. Rieuk is nearly kicked out of the college on the spot.
But Magister Gonery, the principal, who always plays the peacemaker, steps in to stop it.
He puts Rieuk on strict probation. He permanently bans him from the laboratories and officially demotes him to being an errand boy.
Which, if you think about it, is absolutely the worst possible thing you can do to someone with Rieuk's personality.
Oh, without a doubt. He's young, he's incredibly arrogant, he's undeniably talented, and he already feels deeply unappreciated.
So you strip away his entire purpose, you publicly humiliate him, and you leave him just simmering in his own resentment.
You are practically gift-wrapping him for the bad guys at that point.
Which is a perfect segue. Speaking of bad guys, let's pivot to Section 4 of the outline, because we finally get a real glimpse of the Inquisition.
And they are terrifying.
We meet Inquisitor Aluavissant and Grandmaster Donation, and they're meeting in secret at a seminary, St. Argan tells.
This scene is so fascinating because it just perfectly highlights the utter hypocrisy of the state and the church in this world.
Because Donation reveals the secret compartment hidden inside the altar, and inside that compartment are the angel stones.
Right. These are 7 glowing crystals that were supposedly given to humanity by an angel lord, specifically to protect them against demons.
And Donation explains to Vizant that if Linnaius really is a magus using the forbidden arts, then his power is inherently demonic.
So they need a holy angel stone to counteract his dark magic. He hands Vizant the stone of Arderel, the lord of heavenly fire.
Okay, hold on a second. Because we just spent the last 20 minutes talking about how the alchemists are using these glowing ether crystals and how that is strictly heresy.
Right.
But now the church is using glowing angel stones. Are they mechanically different in any way?
Based on the actual descriptions in text, not really at all. They both glow with an inner light. They both resonate with energy. They both channel raw power.
So let me get this totally straight. The alchemists are using aether crystals, which are evil and bad.
Yes.
The church is using angel stones, which are holy and good.
Correct.
But functionally, they are both just using magical glowing rocks to shoot energy at their enemies.
That is the grand irony of the setting. The distinction between the two is purely 100% political.
My magic is a divine miracle. Your magic is a treasonous crime.
Exactly. And Donation openly admits in this scene that the military used these very angel stones to defeat the rogue magi back at the siege of Ondassar.
So the so-called technological and military superiority of the Frankian army
Is actually being secretly bolstered by religious magic.
Yes, that is incredible. Vison is a bit skeptical, though. He's a practical interrogator type of guy.
He is. He looks at this rock and asks, how can I possibly be sure this pretty little gem is going to stop a man who can literally control the wind?
Which is a very valid logistical question.
It is, but Donation completely assures him that the stone works as an alarm system. He says if a demon is close by, a streak of darkness sullies the clarity of the crystal.
It's a magical Geiger counter.
Exactly. So this perfectly sets up the coming conflict. The Inquisition is now armed with a holy weapon specifically designed and calibrated to hunt down Linnaius and his students.
So the trap is actively being set for the alchemists. But meanwhile, Rieuk, our very disgruntled, recently demoted apprentice, is walking right into a completely different kind of trap.
Section 5. The seduction.
Yeah, this scene is a masterclass in psychological manipulation. Rieuk is sent out into the town on a demeaning errand to pick up clock parts from a horloger.
And he is furious about it.
He's walking through the streets, muttering to himself, I divined the spirit, I made the Vox work when they couldn't, and they treat me like a common servant.
He's incredibly vulnerable.
He goes into this tavern to wait, which he hates because he thinks it's loud and smelly and beneath him. And instead of meeting the clockmaker, he is approached by a stranger.
A very tall man wearing a charcoal gray coat. Imri Boldazar.
And the visual description Sarah Ash gives us here is so specific. He wears these dark spectacles that completely hide his eyes. He has this enigmatic smile.
And the biggest red flag of all, he already knows Rieuk's name.
Right. If a stranger walks up to you in a tavern and says, hello, young, vulnerable boy, I know exactly who you are, you should run.
You really should. But Imri plays Rieuk absolutely perfectly.
He really does.
He sits down and says, we've been watching you. We know how frustrated you are. Your masters don't understand you. They fear your power.
He systematically validates every single dark, resentful thought Rieuk has been having for months.
He totally reframes the narrative. He frames the College of Thaumaturgy as a prison holding Rieuk back, and he paints himself as the liberator.
He says that he represents a secret order that actively wants gifted magi instead of punishing them.
And then he asks Rieuk this brilliant, manipulative question. Have you never wondered where your gift truly came from? Your true parentage?
Oh, he plays the orphan card.
It's devastatingly effective.
It always works in fantasy. You're not a nobody peasant. You're a secret somebody with a grand destiny.
It hits Rieuk so hard, it's exactly what he wants to hear. And that is when Imri slowly takes off the dark glasses.
The big reveal.
His eyes are explicitly described as being tortoiseshell, dark brown, but heavily flecked with gold. And they glimmer with this unnatural inner radiance.
So Imri is a magus, a real practicing sorcerer, not a scientist hiding in a dusty lab coat.
And he doesn't deny it. He openly admits it. He says, that's how it is for all of us born with the gift.
Us, He creates that us versus them bond instantly.
Instantly.
And then comes the actual seduction part of the scene. And the text makes it very explicit that this is not just a persuasive conversation. It is a magical glamour.
It's highly hypnotic.
Yeah.
Imri literally reaches out and cups Rieuk's face in his hands.
It's a classic deal with the devil moment, but it's framed as this romantic, almost sensual surrender of willpower.
Imri kisses him.
Yeah.
And the kiss is described as being light as the brush of a bee's wing. But the second it happens, Rieuk feels this massive current of dark energy reverberate through his entire body.
And Imri whispers, "I can taste your potential."
Which is deeply creepy.
It is. It's terrifying and intoxicating all at once.
Rieuk is definitely terrified, but he's also emotionally starving for any kind of acceptance or validation.
He knows he should run. He remembers Magister Gonorrhea explicitly warning him about rogue magi.
But he doesn't run. He just surrenders. He closes his eyes and lets the dark sensation completely take him over.
So just to recap the board state as we head toward the end of the deep dive. The college is under immediate threat of being defunded by the military.
Yes.
The Inquisition is marching toward them, armed with holy magic-detecting nukes.
True.
And the one guy inside the college who has the raw elemental power to maybe help them survive Rieuk has just been officially recruited by the dark side.
It is the definition of a perfect storm.
I really want to circle back at some of the deeper themes running through this, because this book seems to be doing a lot more heavy lifting than just throwing fireballs and wind dragons around.
Definitely is.
We briefly mentioned the science versus magic conflict earlier. The characters go out of their way to call themselves alchemists and horlogers, which just means clockmakers.
Right. They use highly sanitized academic terms like resonance and conductors.
Right. They're desperately trying to categorize their highly illegal actions as structured physical science.
Because if you can measure it, and if you can build a brass machine for it, then it's science, not heresy.
But the source material undercuts this lie constantly.
Constantly. You cannot mathematically measure a screaming, tortured spirit trapped inside a crystal using a ruler.
And you definitely cannot build a scientific machine that requires blood binding to stop it from exploding.
It is entirely a lie they tell themselves so they can sleep at night and so they don't get burned at the stake.
Linnaius knows he is a thief and a sorcerer.
He absolutely does. And that is exactly why he is so violently angry at Rieuk after the Vox incident.
Because Rieuk tore the polite mask right off the operation.
Exactly. When Rieuk uses his elemental connection on the crystal, the raw magic of it becomes undeniable.
It screams. It's incredibly messy. It's highly emotional. It is the furthest thing from a clean, sterile scientific process.
It's wild.
It actually reminds me a lot of how we tend to sanitize modern war in the real world.
Yeah.
We use clean, bureaucratic terms like collateral damage or strategic asset deployment.
But the reality of it is the prologue.
Exactly. The reality is blood on the stones, dead bodies, and weeping children.
That is a brilliant parallel. The entire Frankian Empire is built on that exact kind of sanitization.
They conquer Antessar, they don't slaughter it.
They quietly collect the ancient crystal. They don't violently steal it.
And the Vox is just a communication device, not a literal torture chamber for a living spirit.
The language they use completely obscures the horror of what they're actually doing.
And then there's the theme of the burden of talent. We
Yeah.
get this really stark, fascinating parallel between Linnaius and his apprentice.
Linnaius is well over 100 years old.
Right. He's only kept alive by drinking some sort of alchemical elixir.
And he is deeply bone-tired. We see him wheezing on the stairs during the heist. We see him physically collapsing in his study after using magic.
The magic is actively wearing him out.
But then you have Rieuk, who is young, bursting with chaotic energy, and who literally hears the heartbeat of the earth.
Linnaius looks at Rieuk and just sees the raw danger of that unrefined energy.
He knows that raw power, without intense discipline, and without the bitter, cynical wisdom he has acquired over a century, inevitably leads to disaster.
But instead of sitting the kid down and actually mentoring him through it, he just outright rejects him.
Which is what directly creates the disaster.
It's a massive self-fulfilling prophecy.
Completely. By fearing the boy's potential and pushing him away, he shoves Rieuk right into the arms of Imri Boldazar.
The guy who literally says, "I love your potential, let me nurture it."
It is a catastrophic failure of teaching on Linnaeus's part.
It's also a massive failure of the institution as a whole. The college treats Rieuk as a servant purely because of his background, completely ignoring how incredibly capable he is.
Classism plays a huge, undeniable role in this society.
Oh, absolutely.
Rieuk is a total outsider. He's not from some wealthy, Frantian, noble family. He's an elemental.
Which in their eyes implies this dirty, peasant-like connection to the dirt, rather than the refined, highly educated, scholarly approach of the masters.
They view him as a blunt tool to be used, not as a future colleague to be respected.
Before we wrap things up today, I really want to try and visualize the actual magic system a little bit more clearly.
Let's do it.
Because we have alchemy, we have the forbidden arts, and then we have the church's angel stones.
Based purely on the text, the actual physical mechanics of all three seem identical.
It all comes down to resonance and glowing crystals.
Yes. The angel stones glow brightly and possess angelic power. The ether crystals glow and hold spirits.
The only real difference seems to be the source of the power, or at least the claimed source.
Right. One faction claims their rocks come from heavenly guardians, while the other claims they draw power from the ether or the deep earth.
But the reality is, if you use either of them wrong, both of them can kill you.
Both can easily kill you. And interestingly, both require a very special, specific kind of person to actually wield them.
Vizant the Inquisitor can't just pick up an angel stone and use it. Donation has to formally give it to him and teach him the specific invocation.
And Rieuk has to be born with the rare elemental gift just to be able to hear the ether crystal singing in the first place.
It really heavily suggests that magic is just a neutral, natural force in this world, and all these different political and religious factions are just frantically trying to brand it as their own exclusive property.
Branding is everything, even in high fantasy.
Even when you're fighting demons. So looking at the whole picture, where exactly does this leave us at the end of these chapters?
It leaves us in a very precarious spot.
We have Linnaius, who is ancient and physically fading, actively hiding a terrible, ticking secret in his basement.
The spirit trapped in the binding book.
Yes. We have the Vox machine, which is broken and dead silent once again.
We have the Admiralty threatening to pull their funding and protection in exactly 1 week.
We have the Inquisition, now armed with a holy angel stone, actively marching toward the college to arrest everyone for heresy.
And finally, we have Rieuk, who just got a very dark, very magical kiss from a glowing-eyed stranger in a tavern.
It is an absolute powder keg.
And the fuse has definitely been lit.
Ugh. What stands out to you as the biggest uh-oh moment for the future of this story? What's the thing that's really going to blow up in their faces?
For me, it is absolutely the screaming spirit trapped in that book.
Oh, yeah.
Linnaius and Manoir managed to bind it in a moment of pure panic. But magical bindings, especially hasty, desperate ones done with blood magic, have a very nasty habit of failing over time.
That is a horror trope for a reason.
Right. You have a deeply pissed off, incredibly powerful, tortured entity just sitting on a shelf in a library book. That is a massive ticking time bomb.
And Rieuk knows exactly where that book is.
Exactly.
And now Rieuk is being secretly tutored by a rogue magus who almost certainly knows how to unbind magical seals.
That is a truly terrifying thought for the safety of the college.
Okay, let's unpack that Imri situation just a little bit more before we go. Because he says he wants to recruit Rieuk to a secret order.
He does say that.
But does he actually care about Rieuk? Or does he just desperately want the physical access that Rieuk has to the college's secure labs?
That is the million-dollar question. Notice the timing. Imri appears in the tavern at the exact moment Rieuk is picking up crucial parts for the Vox.
He clearly knows about the college's deeply guarded secrets.
He is undeniably a spy. Now, Rieuk might just be a disposable pawn to him, someone to simply unlock the back door and bypass the college defenses.
Or Imri might genuinely look at Rieuk's raw power and see a highly potent weapon he can point at the Frantian Empire.
Either way you slice it, Rieuk is not being treated as a partner. He's being treated as an asset.
It's incredibly tragic when you look at it from his perspective. Rieuk desperately thinks he's finally finding a mentor or father figure who respects him.
But he's really just finding a different, much more dangerous kind of user.
Linnaius used him to clean the dusty floors. Imri is going to use him for, well, we don't know exactly what yet, but it definitely won't be sweeping up.
It'll likely be something incredibly destructive, probably treasonous.
We've covered a lot of ground today. The what, the why, and the very bloody how of this world.
It's a dense world.
But I always like to leave you with something to really chew on after the deep dive is over.
Go for it. Lay it on us.
It leaves you with this really uncomfortable, lingering question about the true cost of progress.
Yeah.
The Frantian Empire has this incredible, cutting-edge technology, the Vox Aethyria, that supposedly keeps their citizens safe and makes them the most civilized nation in the world.
But the actual hidden engine driving that civilization is a screaming, tortured spirit trapped inside a box in the dark. It really does force you to pause and ask yourself, if you were to pry open the shiny exterior and look under the hood of our own modern civilized comforts, what kind of hidden suffering would you find powering the machine?
That is exactly the question. And for poor Rieuk, looking under that hood might have just cost him his literal soul.
It really might have.
He honestly believes that Imri Boldazar is offering him a golden ticket to freedom from his cruel masters.
But considering that Imri's eyes glow with the exact same unnatural light as the trapped spirit inside the ether crystal,
Has Rieuk just blindly walked out of one prison and right into a much darker, much deadlier kind of cage?
and considering the fact that the last person who touched an ether spirit too closely had their mind completely shattered, Rieuk might be walking into a trap that costs him a lot more than just his apprenticeship.
On that wonderfully cheerful, ominous note, we're going to wrap up today's deep dive into Tracing the Shadow.
It has been quite the journey.
It really is a phenomenal story of stolen gods, screaming radios, and the very high, very bloody price of imperial ambition.
A potent explosive mix.
So until next time, keep tracing the shadows, and we'll see you in the next deep dive.